This is a beautiful amendment for a transformative bill on what gets measured gets fixed. We're going to have a floor amendment on House Bill 8 that is the result of dedicated communication and negotiations with our House counterparts. I want to commend Chairman Brad Buckley, also my education chair, Brandon Creighton, and other advocates, community leaders, education leaders, and most importantly, our Texas students, parents, and teachers. The amendment is important, and Senator Blanco, you'll be happy to know that this amendment restores the social studies and history tests back to the accountability system and the testing, which was unfortunately taken out of the House, but it's back. Ensures a fail-safe for fast track through year growth indicators A through F, proves automatic rescoring of written tests, ensures compliance with federal law for Texas Success Initiatives, TSI, and test substitution for EOCs, provides timely tri-agency IBC list decision-making, focuses on our effort to identify valid indicators by which we measure student success. And Senator Middleton, I hope to hear from you later, but it does comply with all state laws, okay? So we can be happy to send that message to our friends of the SBOE. So what does House Bill do? As a reminder, we're going to replace the STAR test with 3 shorter assessments, beginning of the year, and middle of the year, and end of the year, starting in the 27-28 school year. In the prior year, we're going to have substantial beta site release of this testing information to be able to make sure we fine-tune through the TEA's efforts, Commissioner Mike Raff, the final rollout. And I'm happy that we have an extra year to do that important beta siting because, again, what gets measured gets fixed. If we find issues, they'll be able to be fixed. What I really think is transformative, Senator Colcourse, and I know you like this bill, is the beginning of the year and the middle of the year testing added to a criterion-based Texas TEACS test at the end with a norm reference output. And the first 2 tests are going to be automated item level so you can get information back to students and teachers within 48 hours. So they'll know where they stand, and they'll know where they stand immediately. The teachers will be developing the assessment and return classroom instruction time by reducing the overall testing time and limiting the number of benchmarks that can be administered in the Education Committee. What happens with the existing STAR test is that it freezes the education week before the test, so there's no instruction. So, Senator Johnson, we did a calculation. I think Senator Hosa had one that you did as well. And fine-tuning a wild-ass guess at $100 million from a freshman senator, we actually came up with $92.5 million educational hours returned to those in the educational system. The important thing is that we're also strengthening the public accountability system, which has been a long-term focus of mine for the decade I've been on the Education Committee. We're releasing A through F ratings every year, channeling disputes through legislative oversight rather than the courts, and prohibit the use of taxpayer dollars to do an initial suit. However, while allowing taxpayer dollars to be used on administrative benchmarks or other issues. Releasing these A through F ratings every year will have a tremendously positive effect on the system because the parents want to know how their schools are doing. The teachers want to know how our schools are doing. The students want to know how our schools are doing. The community wants to know how our schools are doing. And I want to point out that one of the most aggressive litigants for 2 years in a row had an F rating. You wonder why they sued to block the release of the tests. We're going to require advance notice of changes to standards and indicators to provide a model of how districts and campuses would perform under those changes. We're promoting post-secondary readiness as it correlates to real-world outcomes and attainments. And Senator Birdwell, you'll be happy to know that military readiness is a big part of the change that we are seeing in these STAR tests. With that, Mr. President, I move the suspension of the regular order of business and adopt what I think is a transformative bill for public education, the last in a series of tremendous bills that have occurred in this legislative session, House Bill 8.
Senator Bettencourt, thank you and thank Brad Buckley. When I was education chair 12 years ago, we pushed through A through F in the following session and the battles we've had. And then we pushed through in 2013 with Jimmy Don Aycock. We were education chairs. We reduced the STAR test from 15 to 5 that year, put more focus on career. And now the STAR test is going away. So I've kind of been with this process of 12 years, and thank you and Brad Buckley for getting it over the line.
It sounds like as the student is taking it, the test will actually modify itself to how the student is doing?
Yes.
But, so what I'm trying to understand right now then is when the test results come back, that would be to the benefit of the student. So then why is it then that the teachers don't like it? Because if it's self-paced, then wouldn't that...
Wouldn't you think it'd be wonderful? The problem isn't that it's self-paced. The problem is that the test is open to manipulation. So if I want it to look like the students are doing poorly, I can adapt it to make the test harder. If I want it to look like the students are doing well, it can be adapted to make the test easier. And you as parents or taxpayers or policy setters will never know which way the test was adapted because it's an internal mechanism. So it is not a valid assessment. And that is the fundamental problem with it, is that the test is being manipulated as it's being taken. In other cases, when you're not in math, but you're in some of the more history or other areas where it's more philosophy driven, you have to comply before you can move on. So the child is put in a position of you must agree. I don't agree with the global warming. No, but you have to, because the test won't let you move on unless you comply. So when the test makers can make the test adaptive, we can make it easier, we can make it harder, or we can make it so that we force compliance. You can't take the next step unless you comply with whatever it is that's being taught or presented in the test. So even if you don't agree with it, you're gonna have to write it. You're gonna have to say so.